Hello guys, and welcome back to Joe's Ventures. And today we're going to be doing part 18 of our Planet Zoo mod spotlights, where we take a look at these different mods that people have been making and showcase them and talk about the wonderful animals we share the world with. So let's get into this first one. So the first one is done by Leaf and Phonetic. We have got the Grand Cayman, or Cayman Blue Iguana, or just called the Iguana. That looks wonderful. I love seeing these more reptiles coming up because I'm a big reptile fan. So, also known as just the blue iguana. These guys are a very endangered species. They're endemic to the Grand Cayman Island, and they used to be considered a subspecies of the Cuban iguana, but were recognized as their own subspecies in 2004. So these guys are pretty big. They're the largest native land animal of the Grand Cayman Island, with a total nose to tail length of about 5 feet, or about 1.5 meters, and can weigh as much as 14 kilograms. Their body length reaches about 20 to 30 inches, with a tail equal to that length, so that's a good size. And they have these articulated toes that are good for climbing and digging, so they can survive in their habitats. And they obviously get this known from this very bluish color that they get, and the male skin will range from dark grey to turquoise blue, where the female is more olive green to pale blue. So this is kind of what you get. So young animals tend to be uniformly dark brown or green with a faint darker banding, and then when they first emerge out of the nest, the neonates have a pattern that's quite intricate of about 8 dorsal chevrons and the crest of the neck in the pelvic area. So these markings fade once the animal turns 1, and then they grow into the adult coloring that you can see here like this. One cool thing about these guys is they're also sexually dimorphic, so males are larger and more prominent dorsal crests, and also have femoral paws on their thighs that they use to secrete pheromones to tell them that they're big boys, and they're also about a third larger than the female. So yeah, as I mentioned, they live on the Grand Cayman Island, which is like a island off Cuba, southwest of Cuba. So it's quite isolated, and they're not a very big land, so they really just do what they can. They can try and just dig and eat what they can. They eat like fallen fruit, herbaceous browse, and nesting soil, so that's really important to them. They were released on the Queen Elizabeth II Botanic Gardens and Radio Tracked in 2004, and they showed that they have a male average area of about 0.6 acres, and males have an average 1.4 acres, so that's their native range. So they have a maximum population density about 4 to 5 per hectare. And these guys are actually believed to be one of the longest living lizards in the area, so they can live up to about 67 years old, 54 of which were spent in captivity for one individual named Godzilla. He was 15 when he was caught, and then he was died at, I believe, 69 years old, which 54 he spent in captivity, so he did a very good job. And these guys are an endangered species, so surveys in 2003 showed there's only 5 to 15 individuals living in the population. So they were restored in other areas, like they number to approximately 125 individuals after release. So a lot of these animals were taken into captivity because of things like rats, feral cats, dogs. They were getting really harmed by them, and even targeted shooting and collisions. So that's why they were really down to those low numbers. But luckily there were a bunch of zoo efforts, like the San Diego Zoo and the Indianapolis Zoo, bred these guys, trying to get them in the have established themselves very much in a bunch of private and public collections, so that's good. Though there are very few purebreds in private collections, and they often are hybridized with the lesser Cayman's iguana, but these pure ones are mostly out in the wild, so that's good. So there has been a bunch of recovery programs to help get these guys back on their feet. So a really wonderful animal, and how can you not love them? So, from our first animal, we got our next one. So this is by Mega Rex Gaming and GiornoPizza. I believe that's how you pronounce it. We have got the Virginia opossum. So this is a very common animal, also known as the North American opossum. Is the only North American marsupial, and is typically just referred to as the opossum. So these guys are solitary and nocturnal and about the size of a domestic cat, and they really just eat whatever they can. They can get to about weights can reach about 1.7 kilos 6 kilos and 11 ounces it's conversion rates. 3.7 kilos for females, so males can get to almost double the size. They're also one of the world's most variable size marsupials, mammals, as large males can weigh up to 20 times than a small female in the tropics, so there's a lot of size variation within the populations. They have this really nice dullish grey coat, and you can see they have the white faces, and also have these long prehensile tails that they use to grab onto branches and small objects, which is really, really cool. And they're very famous for playing dead, so what happens is that if they get threatened by a predator, they'll try and lay down and play dead, even at extreme fear. That's where you get the term playing possum, so that's why that term comes from, because they'll just lay and play dead, they pretend to play injured, and hopefully animals leave them away. Usually, sometimes they just try and get their own thing, and they convince animals that they're no threat to young, so it's really just trying to make themselves look as non-threatening as possible. So these guys are omnivores, and they'll eat pretty much everything. They range from small invertebrates, plant-based foods like leaves and fruits, also eggs, fish, amphibians, small mammals, other small animals. Small mammals, really things like that, just really whatever they can. And even they've been known to eat like voles, mice, rats, snakes, crayfish, really just whatever they can get their mouths around. And these guys reproduce about early as December, but continue through October. And most young are born between February and June. The female's estrous cycle lasts 28 days, is 28 days and lasts for 36 hours. Gestation lasts 11 to 13 days, with the average litter size is 8 to 9 infants, although 20 years often be born. And then they have a very high mortality rate, with only 1 in 10 reaching adulthood. But you can see the very cute that they crawl on the mum's back like that. And newborns are really small, like most marsupials. They're born very, very young, about the size of a honeybee when they're born. Then they climb up into the mother's pouch, and then as they grow. And they can also pretty much keep reproducing on the go. Marsupials have that ability to be like pregnant with one of the pouch, one living outside the pouch, and one being pregnant with uterus, one of the uterus, so they can really just pump out babies. So they're very fast at breeding. So these guys are also quite common in urban environments, since they're so generalist. They eat pet food, rotten fruit, and human garbage. And they also feed resistant to rabies, so that's good, because of their lower body temperature than most other placental mammals, or most placental mammals really. So them being so common is that they have a lot of prevalence in media, and they've also been kept as pets by some people. Seem to make okay pets, and I think really wonderful, cute animals. And I think they're wonderful, amazing, and incredible. So yeah, we've got that one. So on to the Stilt-legged duck, or this is actually an extinct animal. Its scientific name is Presbyornis, or something like that, how you pronounce it, so we can see this wonderful animal. So this is an extinct genus of anseriform birds, so it's actually related to ducks and geese and things like that. There's 2 species. There's P. brevantis, which is and the much lesser known P. isoni. So the larger, more well-known species is about the size of a goose with longer legs, and the other one is most likely much larger, about swan-sized, and is known from really doubtful remains, just a few like bones and such. So these guys are found from the Green River Formation in about the early Eocene, suggesting that these birds lived in colonies and were likely to succumb to botulism, which is pretty interesting, similar to other waterfowl and shorebirds. So these guys are P. recurvatus is also a disputed species, probably synonymous with the species. And these guys are one of the first anseriforms. That means they're one of the first ducks, geese, things like that. And because of their long legs, they were initially mistaken for flamingos, but they were reclassed as anseriform, where their duck-like face anatomy was described. And they're believed to be a representative of a transitional stage between the anseriforms and the shorebirds, but they're now considered to be likely just an extinct group of ducks and geese, or anseriforms, which are mostly closely related to the modern screamers. So we can have a look at these guys here. Let's have a look at the babies. So Judging by the number of fossil findings, these guys are presumed to live in colonies that shallow water and use their broad, flat bills that you can see here, especially on this cute baby, to filter food, similar to like today's dabbling ducks. So that's pretty cool. And I think it's really cool that we're getting extinct species represented here. This was done by Narwhaler, who really does love his extinct species, and I think this is actually pretty cool to see this animal. So I really like how they did the colors. It's like a real cool mix of different duck species. And this one, I think, is quite cute. Did a good job there. So this one's a bit shorter. You can see the babies there. So let's move on to the next animal. This one was done by bubblywums and GiornoPizza. We have got the Capybara, and we have to say these are the cutest little guys. Look at these babies, they are so cute. We'll have a look at the adults first. So the Capybara is a giant cabby rodent from South America and is the largest living rodent. And these guys are... There's two species of capybara. There's the greater capybara and the lesser capybara. And their closest living relatives today are guinea pigs and cabbies, which are and is more distantly related to things like the agouti, the chinchilla, and the popu. These guys live in savannas and dense forests and near bodies of water, so they're very aquatic. And they are highly social and can be found into groups of up to 100 individuals, but often 10 to 20 is the normal. They're not a threatened species, luckily, but they're hunted a lot for their hide and their meat. So these guys are obviously very big with their barrel shapes. They can get up to about 160 to 134 centimeters in length and stands 50 to 62 centimeters tall at the withers or at the shoulders, and typically weigh between 35 and 66 kilograms, with females being slightly heavier than males, and a world record holding female was 91 kilos. So they're quite big. So they're semi-aquatic and found across pretty much all over South America except Chile, where they live in dense forests, savannas, marshes, and the whole lot. So these guys are also herbivores. They mainly feed on grasses and aquatic plants, along with fruit and tree bark. They're also very selective feeders, and they feed on the leaves of one species and disregard the other species surrounding it, so they're very selective. They will eat a greater variety during the dry season, as fewer plants are available, and when they eat grasses during the wet season, they switch to more abundant reeds during the dry season, so they'll eat grasses and stuff depending on the season, so that's very adaptable. So, like their relatives, they cannot seem to synthesize vitamin C, so they're not supplemented with vitamin C. They can develop gummed bees, and that's a sign of scurvy. So that's what you get when you on pirate ships. So you don't want that. They have a lifespan of up to 8 to 10 years, but usually less than 4 in the wild, since they're very heavily predated by things like jaguars, pumas, ocelots, eagles, and cayman, and also the preferred prey of the green anaconda. So as I mentioned, these guys are very gregarious. They live found in groups of 100 individuals at times and during the dry season, but usually around 10 to 20, and often actually found solitary. They're very, very flexible in their groups. And capybara gestation is about 130 to 150 days, and they produce a litter of 4 very cute little babies like these, which are very adorable, and they give birth on land, and the female rejoins the group within a few hours of delivering these newborns. And within a week they can eat grass, but they still continue to suckle, and they are weaned about 16 weeks old, and the young form a group within the main group. And these species are not considered threatened, so their population is stable without most of their range, and they're hunted for their meats and pelts, and they often are seen as competition for livestock, so often they are hunted, and even some areas they are farmed, and are very famous, almost famous, because they get on with almost every other animal. They're very common in zoos and parks, where they can live up to 12 years and doubles their lifespan. Are very docile and enjoy human contact and can be fed, even though they can be aggressive. And I think these guys are just wonderful, amazing as they are. Really great. So now we get to move on to the next animal. This one is also done by, this one was also done by GiornoPizza, but also done by Gaboni, so it's Gaboni and Jummy's Pizza. We have got the Chitali deer, so also known as the spotted deer or the axis deer. These are a species that are native to India, and they are a moderate-sized deer. They can get between nearly 90 centimeters for males and females 70 centimeters at the shoulder. with males weighing between 30 and 75 kilograms and females weighing between 25 and 45 kilograms. These guys are sexually dimorphic. As you can see, the males are larger and have these antlers. And they get their name sort of like the spotted deer because they have this rufous colouring that's covered in white spots, and their rumps or tail and stuff is all white. So yeah, these guys are distributed between India, Nepal, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, around all that area. And they have been introduced to areas like Australia and New Zealand, also the United States. So they were introduced for hunting. And they are active throughout the day. In the summer, they tend to rest under the shade during the midday as the sun glares, avoid the temperatures, so they try to avoid those temperatures. They're very cautious and they're gregarious, so they live in herds consisting of an adult female and offspring. And that's kind of the boss, so they live in herds. And then they may be also associated with either sex, whatever. And their small herds are usually most common, but there have been aggregations of about 100 recorded. And akin to like North American elk, they tend to give out bellows and barks. And these calls are not as strong, but they consist of rutting. So when females go into estrus, they go and roar and bellow and fight each other. And these guys are often attracted to the Chitali, common Myras are, and they have a very interesting relationship with another species, the Northern Plains grey langur, which is a widespread Southeast Asian monkey, that they use. They live in the trees, and they also see, okay, is there a tiger around? And they kind of rely on these animals to see predators, so they make out predators. So these guys don't have to. They got a second pair of eyes, so these guys can keep safe. So these guys are grazers, and they mainly feed on grasses throughout the year. And even in some places, they've even been recorded to eat red crabs. And that have been found in their ruminants. They found crabs. But generally, they eat mainly grass. That's the main thing. And these guys, obviously, when they mate, their female goes to the estrus, and they'll rut. So the males will fight for the females. And newborn are hidden from the herd a week after birth, which is much shorter than other deer, and the mother fawn bond is not very strong, and the two can get separated often, so they reunite easily. So they can breed up to twice a year if the first calf is killed. We're gonna have a look at the fawn. I mean, quite a cute fawn. And the males will continue their growth until 7 to 8 years, and their average lifespan is nearly 22 years, and the longevity wild is merely 5 to 10, so really in the wild it's kind of rough and harsh for them. These guys are likely considered least concerned because they're found around many large areas and lots of population, and they're also a very important food source for things like tigers and dholes. But they are often found beyond capacity in their environments because of hunting and domestic livestock, and plus often they're limited to reserves where they can't really get out of the reserves, which kind of sucks. We'll have a look at the female. Where's the female? There she is. Queen. So often these guys won't be able to move out of these reserves and get stuck there, and often carrying capacity of the reserve will get too high, and that can cause ecological damage. But these guys are wonderful, cool animals, and I think we are good for the next one, which is quite exciting. We have got the... Oh no, we're wrong way. We got the Hawaiian monk seal right here. Look at this wonderful boy. So these guys are an endangered species of earless seal, and they're one of the 2 extant species of monk seal. There's the Hawaiian monk seal, there's the Mediterranean monk seal, and there's the extinct Cambrian monk seal, which is believed to be extinct. So these guys have this really cool grey coat, and that's what distinguishes them from like harbour seals. And their ideal body for hunting things like fish, lobsters, squid, and deepwater coral beds. That's where they usually hunt and play. Adult males of these guys can get between 140 to 180 kilograms and 2.1 meters long in length, while females tend to be slightly smaller at around or slightly larger actually, at 180 to 170 kilograms and 2.4 meters, so females are slightly bigger. When these pups are born, they average about 14 to 18 kilograms and 1 meter long, and they're nursed for about 6 weeks, and eventually weigh 70 to 90 kilograms by the time they are weaned, while their mother loses up to 140 kilos. So these guys are found around the northwest Hawaiian Islands, and there's a small population likely growing on the main Hawaiian Islands. They spend 2/3 of their time at sea, and they spend most of their day foraging in deeper water off the shallow lagoons up to 300 meters deep. And they breed and haul out on the sun on corals, sand corals, and volcanic rocks, where they use the sand ones for pupping. And the habitat is limited to the Hawaiian Islands since there's not many other land masses around there. So as I mentioned, they mainly feed on bony fish, cephalopods and crustaceans, especially octopus, and they're very flexible in that way, and they can hold their breath for up to 20 minutes and dive more than 550 meters. However, they usually dive on average of 6 minutes and less than 60 meters. And they are preyed upon by Galapagos sharks, great white sharks, and tiger sharks. So Hawaiian monk seals mate in the water during their breeding season, which occurs between June and August. And females reach maturity about age 4 and give birth to 1 pup a year. The fetus takes 9 months to develop, very similar to humans, and birth occurs between May and June. Pups start at around 16 kilos and are about 1 meter long, as I mentioned, and have 1 pup per year. And they nurse for about 6 weeks, I mentioned that all before. So these guys are considered endangered, and even rarer than the Caribbean monk seal. I mean, not rare, it can't be rare or something that's extinct, but they are very, very endangered. So nearly disappeared from the main islands, but are beginning to recover. The growing population was about 150 in 2004 and 300 in 2016. So I believe that the population now is about 1,400 of 1,400. In 2010, it was estimated that only 1,100 individuals remain, and 2016, they believe the population is about 1,400. So they're endangered, but they are coming back, so that's very, very good. Most of the threats of these guys include low survival rates, male aggression, and weird sex ratios that can cause aggression. Anthropogenic human impacts include hunting, which makes a smaller gene pool, continuing disturbance, especially around Hawaii, where there's a lot of people that live there, and marine debris, and obviously getting caught in fish nets and just fishing in general. Let's have a look at the baby. Have a look at the baby. Look at this cutie. Look at this cutie. He's so cute. So luckily these guys are protected in where they live, so their population is increasing. So people have been putting a lot of efforts to protect the pups, protect areas where they breed, make sure there's enough habitat for them, and there has been a restoration plan to help bring these guys back from that. And it seems to be working well. Their populations are going up. But a lot of these issues, like anthropogenic climate change and things like that, it's going to be an issue. How did I say it right? It's anthropogenic. Yes, that's right. But look at these wonderful boyos. Cool animals. Wonderful. Wonderful. So now let's move on to the next animal. We have got the American Alligator by Nicholas Weinreiter and Leaf. So this is a really cool one. Everyone's favorite. So this is the American alligator, often just referred to as the gator. Is a large crocodilian from the southeastern United States. So they're found around Florida, the Carolinas, even the Texas, things like that. So they are also related to Chinese alligator, which we covered last episode, which was cool. So an adult male alligator can reach about 3.4 to 4.6 meters long and can weigh up to 453 kilograms. Females are smaller and weigh between 2.6 and 3 meters in length. They inhabit freshwater wetlands, marshes, and cypress swamps from southern Texas to North Carolina. And you can tell these apart by the sympatric American crocodile, because they have much broader snouts. You can see it's much more of a U shape, much broader, which they use to crush turtles and such. So these guys are apex predators. So really, they're the top boys of their ecosystem. They consume fish, amphibians, reptiles, birds, mammals, and hatchlings will mainly feed on invertebrates, but they really just eat whatever they can get their mouths around. They also play very important roles in wetland ecosystems as ecosystem engineers, because they'll dig burrows, which will provide wet and dry habitats for other organisms like amphibians as they disperse. Throughout the year, and particularly during the breeding season, they declare their territory and locate suitable mates, and male alligators will use infrasound to attract females by doing a really deep grumble, and you can almost feel it. It's that deep, and then they will attract the females through that. Eggs are laid in a nest of vegetation and sticks and leaves, and their mud is sheltered in or near water where the female will protect. So luckily these guys are considered least concern, but historically their populations were hunted mercilessly for skin, and they still are, but luckily there's a lot of people breeding them in captivity. There's alligator farms, and there's a lot of issues that happen. So really what's happened now is that it's mainly just shift to farming, and now the wild population has increased. Since they're such fast breeders, it's really allowed for that, so they have recovered. And the sad thing is that there haven't been many fatal attacks, but there are a lot of alligators will kill people's dogs and such, so you just really need to learn to live with them. And being an animal like that, let's see if we can move to the other one. Being an animal like this, a lot of the bigger animals don't live near populations, so really what we need to do is kind of just give the big animals the space they deserve. And often problem alligators are brought into captivity and used as ambassador animals, which I think is really cool. But these are just wonderful animals, and I'm glad that they're doing well. I really love alligators. They're like kind of they look cool, they're wonderful. I think they have a lot of personality. Cool animals. So now we've got the second to last animal. We have got the serval. So we will have a look at where's the other serval? There we are. So this serval was done by Mergie, or Mergie, how you pronounce it. So these are a wildcat that are endemic to Africa. They are rare in North Africa, but widespread around sub-Saharan Africa, except for rainforest regions. So you find them around the savannas and such. They are protected. They're considered least concern, which is good, but hunting is prohibited of these guys, and it's regulated at country levels, so it depends. So there are 3 subspecies recognized, and they are very slender, medium-sized cat. They stand between 1.4 to... They stand between 54 and 62 centimeters at the shoulder and weigh between 9 and 18 kilograms. They are characterized by the small head that they have, large ears, the golden tufts, and the wonderful stripes that they have. It's pretty cool. They also have the longest legs out of any cat relative to their body size, so that's pretty cool. These guys are also solitary carnivores, and they're active both during the day and the night. They prey upon rodents, specifically valley rats, small birds, frogs, insects, and reptiles, and they use their hearing to locate their prey. Let's see if we can find the albino female that we got over here. She's fine. Wonderful queen. And these guys are very famous for leaping. These guys can leap over 2 meters above the ground and land their prey on the forefeet, and they'll kill it with a bite to the neck. So both of these genders also establish very highly overlapping home ranges of 10 to 32 kilometers squared, and they mark them with their feces and saliva, or I believe urine. So mating takes place at different times of the year at different parts of their ranges, but typically once to twice a year. And after a gestation period of about 2 to 3 months, a litter of wonderful cubs is born. The kittens are weaned about 1 month of age and begin hunting their own about 6 months of age, and they leave their mother at about 12 months or a year old. So luckily these guys are considered least concern, but there are as much issues. They're protected, but of course, with a lot of animals in Africa, poaching is an issue, habitat loss is an issue, especially with livestock. But luckily these guys are doing quite well, since they're not really that impacted by livestock, since they don't really hunt livestock. And I think they're still a wonderful animal. Really wonderful. Let's see if we can get another. Are you still sleeping? Too bad they didn't breed, but I think these guys are just wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful animals. And last, but most definitely not least, this is by Nicholas Lion Rider and Leaf. Covered this guy before a couple times, but we have got the southern white rhinoceros. So that's a subspecies of there's the southern and northern white rhino, definitely the most common. There's about 20,000 of these guys in the wild. The northern white rhino is only 2 left, so they're functionally extinct. Also known as just the white rhino or the square-lipped rhino, these are the most common species and the largest species of rhino. They have a wide mouth that you see here that's used for grazing, and they're considered pretty epic, I think. So these guys are considered near threatened with a population of about 19 to 21,000 in 2015. So these are the largest of the 5 rhino species. They reach a head-to-body length of about 3.7 to 4 meters long in males and 3.4 to 3.65 in females, and can weigh an average between 2,300 kilograms averaging, but males are heavier than female at about 1,700 kilograms of the females, and their largest size has been known to attain specimens up to 3,600 kilograms and 4,500 kilograms have been claimed but not verified, so the biggest estimate's about a little over 3.5 tons. And what's very famous therefore for this big horn. This big horn averages about 60 centimeters in length, but they've been recorded to reach about much as 150 centimeters in length, but only in females, surprisingly. So these guys are pretty cool. These guys are pretty generalist grazers. They'll just eat what they can. They're one of the largest pure grazers. So they'll just eat as many grasses as they can get their mouths around. They reach about sexual maturity about 6 to 7 years old, while males reach about 10 to 12 years old, where the females, they'll tend to hang out together. They live in small groups. Breeding pairs will stay together for about 5 to 20 days before they go their separate ways. Gestation for a white rhino is 16 months, with a single calf being born between 40 and 65 kilograms. So, like this guy, this cutie right here, we've got enough baby rhinos. So calves are usually unsteady for the first 2 or 3 days of their life, but then they start to walk around, and then their mother will run in front of the baby and are very protective of their baby. And I think that's a great start to life, having a mother rhino as your parent to protect you. There's really not much you can do better than that in the wild. And look at the cute run. So, weaning starts at about 2 months, but they may continue to suckle for up to a year old. And the birth interval for white rhinos is between 2 to 3 years. And luckily, they have no natural predators other than humans that we'll get into. But even young rhinos are really attacked because of their mother's presence. So they're really able to, since they have such low predation pressures from natural predators, usually they don't need to breed as fast. Let's have a look at this male here. Or female. Look at this wonderful one. So that's why they are so big and powerful. So they usually live around Southern Africa and Southeast Africa, not Southeast Asia. So around Eastern Africa and Southern Africa, they're by far the most common wild rhino, luckily. So the northern white rhino was found around Uganda, Sudan, and the eastern part of the Central African Republic. And now they only live in the Gamba Nature Park in the Congo, and there's only 2 of them left. But these guys are much more common. They're found in South Africa, Namibia, Zimbabwe, Kenya, and Uganda. So they're much more popular. Look at a big poop you are. So the biggest reason these guys have been declining is, of course, for their horn and poaching. So a lot of people in Asia believe that rhino horn has medicinal properties, which is flat out not true. These horns are made of the same material, keratin, as our fingernails, and a good rhino horn could go for $70,000 USD on the market. So that's a big incentive for poachers and gangs and stuff in Africa to go out and poach rhinos from national parks, and they are protected fiercely, especially rare species like black rhinos, and even in Asia like Sumatran and Javan rhinos, Indian rhinos, they're protected very fiercely because they're constantly at risk with poachers, so they often have armed guards around these animals, which kind of sucks. But it really is kind of sad. But luckily these guys are not doing too bad. There's about 20,000 in the wild. Other rhinos are not doing quite as well, especially like Javan and northern whites. They're not doing particularly well. Although Javans are improving, there's been a few calves spotted. I believe the population's now about 80, so that's pretty good. But luckily, in captivity, these guys are also very common because of their more chill-out nature, and they like to live in small groups. So much easier to show. So they're found in zoos like San Diego, found in zoos really all over the world. San Diego actually had some northern white rhinos, the San Diego Zoo Safari Park, but the only 2 northern white rhinos live in Kenya under 24-hour armed guard. But now these guys are wonderful, incredible animals, and I think these guys are wonderful. I'm just excited to see, because if we all know the leaks and stuff, we got the Africa pack coming. I want to see how these guys compare. It's going to be wonderful. So yeah, I believe this will be a good place to end the video. So yeah, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys like and subscribe, always remember to click that little bell icon in the corner to get notified when I upload anything. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy this video, guys. Like and subscribe, and bye.